Welcome to Undefined, the podcast about the space between evidence and expansion. I'm Lauren Conlon, nutrition coach, counselor in training, and someone who is endlessly curious about nuance. And that's exactly what I want this show to be, an exploration of what doesn't always fit into neat categories, and my desire to bring depth to topics that I feel like is lost in content today. I've been sharing my work since 2014, but if you are new here, you'll notice that I don't really like to stay in one lane because I feel that growth happens when we open ourselves up to new ideas and new possibilities. So if that is your vibe, I'd love for you to join me. Now, if that sounded like it was me reading something, yes, I was. I am notoriously terrible at intros and outros. Y'all, like I have done hundreds of podcasts and I still for some reason cannot nail an intro or an outro. So if you hear me reading something that sounds more put together, that is why. I wrote it. It's all my thoughts. I just swear as soon as I have this great idea, I get it out and then I want to press record and do the intro and it is game over. So welcome to the first episode of Undefined. I am so excited to be back podcasting. I have taken a little bit of a hiatus and I'm just excited to be back here, and I'm so thankful for everyone who's joining for our first episode. And honestly, I just want to get into really the why behind Undefined and what this show is going to be about. So a true intro to the podcast. So if you guys are familiar, maybe you're not, but my coaching company is called Redefine Healthy Brands. Redefine Healthy has always been my slogan for the past 12 years that I've been coaching, I guess over 12 years now. And at first it would have seemed obvious to call the show Redefined instead of Undefined. But to me, this just kind of felt like the opposite side of the same coin in a way that it was more just, I'm doing something with my hands. You guys can't see it. If you are watching YouTube, you have the pleasure of seeing this, but otherwise it just has a more like raw feel and a more expansive and edgy feel. And that is exactly what I wanted this podcast to be about. And also for it to be less polished and for it to be something that could be open and different and change and pivot. And, you know, after doing, quite literally hundreds of different podcast episodes, I started to really feel boxed in to what I should do, air quotes there, what I should do or how I should show up, how I should share and talk. And that looked like, the types of topics to cover. Like if I wanted to talk about something that was kind of outside of that, it felt like, well, this doesn't really fit the show. So it's not really appropriate to put here, but I don't really know where else to put it. And it still feels valuable to share. Or, how much it was edited. And I so love edited podcasts. Like, trust me, I do believe that is necessary. I also am someone who I breathe and talk very loudly. There's a lot of sighs sometimes, which I don't even realize that I'm doing when I'm doing it until you hear it back after. And I'm like, girl, what are you doing? Like that. Why? I know why. I have nose issues. I have breathing issues. Really is what that is all about. But that's a whole different conversation. But, some of the awkward pauses. So unless something is a catastrophic and I need to edit it, which there will be those times, I want to move away from some of that, get back to more kind of raw and real conversations. And even just I was getting hung up on how long the episode should be. And, if I wanted to talk about something that was maybe 10 or 15 minutes, it didn't even feel appropriate. Is that a quote unquote podcast? And of course it is. But I felt like, oh, it can't be this. And, if there was a topic and it was too short, well, I guess we'll just kind of bypass it. So I started to just feel really boxed in. And I honestly I just needed a break from podcasting too. I've done a lot of them. And there was also a big change in my life at that point. I was going back to school and there was just a lot happening. So I was like, you know what? I'm just taking a step back right now. This is what is for the best. And after this break, I have really honestly come to realize that I've missed this a lot. And I wanted to come back though in this more authentic way. and in a way that I can lean into being more comfortable with myself and trying to show that. So it has always been hard for me to show my full personality online. I feel like I was maybe a little bit better at this early on, just because content was still relatively new in the space. I'm not saying by any means I was like an early adopter of anything, but I was early on sharing a lot of different things. And, really looking back, I was probably using my Instagram as like what we would now consider like stories, just like sharing random things and making posts. But I had a YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel. It's still up there if anybody wants to sit through those videos. But it's still on. It is still there. I just have not added new content is what I mean. But I really just honestly would sit down and share about a topic or something that I was going through. And that was always my favorite kind of content that felt very kind of like sit down, chit chat, some useful, some silly, and just kind of be able to integrate everything. And I really struggle with that with short-term content, and that is obviously a personal flaw. I'm not saying that there's other people who can't do that. There's people who do that phenomenally. But for me, short-term content is really hard because everything has to be flashy. You have to have the perfect photo, the perfect, call to action. Everything has to happen in like 3 seconds, all these like edits and quick things. And I understand that people are doing that in a more unfiltered and like raw and less edited way. But it's also still like LOL, it's still edited. Like when people say, oh, this is an unedited thing, but like every 3 seconds the clips change. And I just know what goes into making that kind of content and I can appreciate it, but I'm just not good at it. I would much rather just sit down and be like, here's something on my mind. Let me just talk and hopefully someone will find this useful. And that's what I do best. And I don't really describe things in a very succinct or concise way. If anybody knows me personally or has worked with me, you'll know that when I'm doing client video check-ins, there's a lot of different paths to the story and the feedback, but it always comes back. It will always come back. So really just going to try to lean into that and honestly just share more of that and just be more comfortable with myself, because I'm really gotten to a space where I'm pretty comfortable with myself as a whole and how I show up in real life, in my relationships and all of that. But online is still really hard. And then there's like this enormous looming critic that just like lives inside of me, who just always wants to capitalize on things that I feel are negative or not good enough. So it'll be like, oh, well, your voice is this, or you sound like that, or you talk like this, or you breathe too loud, or you haven't had Botox, so you have wrinkles and you look like this. And there's it's nonstop. And obviously those are things that I have worked on, but I'm still currently working on. And part of this show too is just showing up. I'm just doing it. And, I can think of 100,000 million reasons and excuses to not do things. Like I am so good at procrastinating in terms of finding something that is negative. Like if I'm scared to do something, I will find every negative reason to not do it. And, always thinking, oh, well, there's someone who's, smarter at this or knows more, or they said it better, or why should I do this? And all this stuff. And with the podcast wanting to come back, like I had a pretty solid setup. If you guys were listeners of the Loco Fit Show, you would have heard and saw, if you saw some of the clips or you watched it on YouTube, I had a pretty decent setup. I have a good camera, had good mics, and to be honest, like I have all that, but it's a huge, 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 huge pain to set up and edit. And I am very consciously aware of my limitations at this point. I am currently in school and running a business and, have a boyfriend and have a life. And as much as I want to do this, time is a limiting factor. And I know that I would use that as an excuse to not do it. So I was like, all right, what can I do? I have something in this whole closet back here. There's a million different things. Gotta have something that I can do. So I am recording on my laptop because the camera is not the best, but it's not the worst. We're recording on Loom because I already pay for Loom. So why not do that? And the editing function is actually pretty self-explanatory, at least for me and my very, very minimal tech skills. I was able to actually do all of my recordings for my coaching mentorship on Loom. So I was like, oh, let me use Loom. And I rigged up the new arm, the new like boom arm, and an old mic. So it's not the best sound, but it's not the worst, so this is kind of the theme of just like, let me just dive into it. Let me not be crippled by my perfectionism that stops me from doing so many things, and kind of just being in this, like, it can only get better mindset. So here is this. It probably could, again, look and sound better. And I'm a little rusty from podcasting. Like, doing podcast interviews is much easier for me, mostly just because, I don't know, it's just somebody's asking you something and I can always generally respond. But getting on a solo or me interviewing someone kind of podcast is always just much more challenging. So a little rusty, feeling it, but I am promising myself, you know what, I'm just going to show up and we're going to do this. And like I said, I'll definitely edit some things out if I need to, like if it is like, oh my gosh, this is terrible, but I'm really going to try to not have this be overly edited and let it be silly and let all those things kind of come out. So I think for next podcast, I'm going to go through a whole like my story and background type of episode, which feels a little self-serving. I'm not going to lie. But I know personally that when I hear someone's story and their background, I really, really enjoy that. And I get a lot out of it based on what they share. So I certainly will not just be talking about myself. I will try to make that useful in terms of some lessons and things that I have learned along the way. Because I'll be honest, guys, the past couple of years have been crazy. Like, so much personal growth. Like, just... wow, my life now is so different than it was just a couple years ago. And I'm very, very proud of that, to be honest. So little pat on the back there. But just to quickly go over my story, I have been an online nutrition coach for the past 12 years. Yeah, 12 years. I am currently a year into my clinical mental health counseling program, and I just finished up my first internship this summer, and I cannot wait to share some of the lessons and things that I learned there, because so applicable to so many of you listening, even if you're not in the field. And I have an amazing boyfriend, I have great family, I have great friendships in my life, and yeah, right now I'm not traveling quite as much. I would say previously I was traveling quite a bit to speak and just go to different events. And I'm still doing that, but just not as much, just being back in school, which of course has been a huge change. So I'm really trying to also use this space to document the things that I am learning, because I'm notoriously terrible at that, because every time I'm going through something, I'm like, oh, well, it has to be, again, going back to some of that perfectionist mindset of, can we see that it's a theme? Going back to that, a lot of times I'm like, well, I don't know this yet, so I shouldn't speak on it. And there is a way to speak about things to not pretend like you're an authority. And I know how to do that. So it's like, let me just get out of my way and share some of these lessons on my way through this, because there's a lot of people who can benefit from that, not necessarily because they are maybe doing that or they're not doing it. Anyways, now I'm just rambling. Here's part of what I was talking about with less editing. Old me, who had more time, maybe would have edited that. Honestly, I probably would have re-recorded this whole damn thing, but we're not going to do that. We're going to keep it moving. So next episode, if you guys are interested, you can tune in and hear more about my background. But I do want to wrap up this episode, and I already prepped y'all. Not good with outros, but we're going to... This one's the first one, so it's going to be especially clunky, but I want to touch on what you can expect in this show. So it's going to be a mix of short and long episodes, because like I said, sometimes I'm going to want to just talk about something, and it's going to be really applicable with like a client situation or something that I've learned, or a topic that I'm interested in, or a question that I get, and maybe it's only like 10 or 15 minutes. But then other times I might have something where it is a lot longer, or I am doing an interview. So it's going to be one of those things that you're going to get a mix of short and long episodes. And sometimes it's going to be more general topics, and other times it's going to be really specific deep dives. And like I mentioned, a lot of it's going to be solo, but I am also going to have guests, because I have some fantastic friends and colleagues in the space who are all really, really just amazing in their own way, intellectual and just, forward thinking, and bring a lot of different nuance to things. So we will get that. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, because right now I'm recording on Loom, which does not support guests. So I'm a figure it out. But again, not putting roadblocks in the way. Just wanted to get started. So this is really going to be a variety show, is the best way of putting it. And listen, I don't know what to call this. I really want to call it a case study, but I don't feel like it's a case study. So if you guys listening have a better name for this, let me know. But I really want to hear from you guys. I want to hear the topics that you want to hear. And I also want to hear the specific situations that you want to get feedback on. So like my intention is, when someone would like call in on the radio and they'd be like, yo, here's the situation, da 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 da, and then someone would answer them. That's what I want to do. But no one's calling me. You're going to fill out a form and then I will answer it here. So it won't be live. So that's the vibe. That's the energy. I don't know what that's called. Maybe it is a case study or a case review, case conceptualization, something. Give me something, guys. We got to have a name for it. That's better than specific feedback to your question. But I'm going to drop a link below in the show notes, and that's going to be a Google form that I made. It's completely anonymous if you want it to be. Of course, if you want to share, you certainly can do that as well. But I do know that some people feel more comfortable when they are sharing information anonymously. So I'll put that below, and that can just be, again, topics or suggestions. But if you have really specific situations that you want covered as well, I do plan to do that on the show too. So that is all. Thank you for listening to the first episode of Undefined. I am really excited for this journey and for you guys to be joining me. So catch us next week for episode 2.